So I'll just go ahead and get started then. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to listen. Thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting me to come and chat with you all. So I'm talking today about how to make your cat happy, and I'm going to be sharing a number of practical tips that you can use with your cat. And for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Zazie Todd, and I write a blog called Companion Animal Psychology. That's the URL of my blog there. I'm also the author of a book called Purr, The Science of Making Your Cat Happy, and for dog lovers, a book called Wag, The Science of Making Your Dog Happy. So the tips that I'm talking about today are also tips that are in the book, and they are tips that are aimed at cats of any age, because I think it's really important that we help cats be happy throughout their life. And obviously there are certain things that are especially important to do when you have a kitten, like the adorable kitten who's here with us today. But also as your cats get older, they may need a little bit of extra help, especially as they become a senior cat. Sometimes senior cats can need a bit of extra help. And it's very important to pay attention to what your cat needs throughout their whole life, not just when they're new to you, but also throughout the whole life. And when we do that, that can help them to be much happier. And when they're a happier cat, basically, they are actually less likely to have behavior issues. So I'm going to be talking about some of the practical things that we can do, and also telling you a little bit about some of the science behind that as well. And there will be time for questions at the end. So if you have any questions, you have the opportunity to ask them at the end. And so I'm going to go straight on and into some of these tips. One of the most important things that we can do for our cats is actually to set your house up right for your cat. And there are lots of ways that we can do this, which are actually quite cheap and easy to do, even though when you see online on TV sometimes or on social media, you see these absolutely amazing setups where people have catios or cat patios enclosures for their cats, and I think we all wish that we could have such a thing. Or you see these things where people put shelves all around their house, like all the way up here, all the way around the house, and it makes a lovely high up space for the cat to go. And of course those things are fantastic, and if you're able to provide those things for your cat, that's brilliant. But not everybody is able to do that. But nonetheless, there are lots of different ways in which you can set your house up right for your cat and help them to feel more comfortable in your home, regardless of whether or not they have outdoors access, because a lot of people these days keep their cats as indoors only. And what that means is that if your house is not set up how they would like it, they have nowhere else to go. It's not like they can go outside and find their own enrichment. That's entirely on us to provide it for them. In places where cats do have outdoors access, occasionally cats will actually move home. And I don't know if you've ever heard stories of cats going and moving in with someone else because they're not quite happy where they were. They go and they start hanging out with a neighbor down the street and they end up actually moving into there. But if your cat is indoors only, it's really entirely up to you to provide everything that they might need. And there's something called the 5 pillars of a healthy feline environment. And one of those things that we have to do for cats is to provide safe spaces. And if you think about the cat that you've got, I bet they already have some safe spaces around the home. And you can think about where your cat likes to hang out. So this is not my cat in this picture. This is a stock photo, but one of my cats loves to go and hide in amongst all of the laundry. And that for her is one of her favorite safe spaces. And it's, I think, because it's in a quiet space and she can be completely covered up and it's nice and cozy and she's well hidden and she's nice and warm. So for her, that's a nice safe space to go. Not everybody likes their cat to curl up amongst the laundry, especially if it's your basket of clothes waiting to be ironed and they're all clean and now they're all getting covered in cat hair. So one way to deal with that would be to think of how could you provide something that is similar, that your cat will like, that is somehow even better for them, so you can encourage them to use that space instead. So if you look around your home, you probably can see lots of spaces where you actually could make a nice safe space for your cat. The reason a safe space is important for cats is because their response to stress is actually to run and hide. And so if your cat is hiding, it's really best to let them hide, because that's helping them to feel safe. And it would only be like if you had to get them out, for example, if you have to get them out to get them to the vet, then you might have to pull them out of their hiding space. But otherwise, it's really best to let them hide if that's what they're doing. We think of cats as little predators, always running around catching mice and birds and so on. But at the same time, we know that cats are prey. So they are prey for animals like coyotes and mountain lions. And I don't know what you have where you live, but also any loose dogs might be a threat to cats as well. And so cats are actually quite vulnerable, and they know that as a species, so that their natural response to something stressful is to run and hide. And sadly, we know from research on coyote scat that, for example, there was one study done in the Los Angeles area which found that a certain proportion of coyote scat sadly was actually cats, and whether they were people's pet cats or if they were feral cats, community cats, is not known. But we also know that coyotes will also occasionally kill cats, not to eat them, but because they see them as competition for food, because coyotes also will catch some of the same prey that cats will do, rabbits and rats and mice and so on. So that's why it's really important to think about safe spaces for your cat. One of the ways that we know this is so important is from a study that looked at shelter cats, and they put the shelter cats in something called a choice chamber. And what that means is it's like a box in the middle with everything that they needed in, so their food and their litter trays, the stuff that was essential for them. And then it had different chambers going off, so the cat could choose to go one way or another way and decide where to spend their time. And in one of those spaces, they had a really good toy for the cat to play with. In another one, they had something like a perch, so the cat could sit high up and perch. And in another one, they had a hiding space, basically like a cardboard box that the cat could go into. And once the cat was used to spending time in this chamber, they looked at where they chose to spend their time. Which of these other boxes did they go into? And it was really the hiding place the cats chose. And one of the things that the scientists said after doing this study is that actually a hiding box is not enrichment for a cat, it's actually a need for a cat. So that's why it's so important for us to provide hiding places. And of course, we all know that cardboard boxes make great hiding places for cats, and we know that cats love cardboard boxes, and that's really nice because that's such an easy, simple, cheap way to provide a hiding space for a cat. And so in one of these pictures, you can see the box is just open and the cat's gone in anyway. In the other one, you can see that someone has cut a hole in the box to make like a doorway for the cat. So you can do that if you want to. And of course, actually in many shelters now, they have specific things that do provide hiding spaces for cats. And there are several commercially available like little hiding places for shelters that shelters use now. So a safe space for a cat, it's nice and cozy and warm, it's cat sized, and it might be high up because cats do like to sit and perch and survey things. So you can very easily make new safe spaces for your cat just by giving them a cardboard box, but you can also look, for example, at your bookshelves. Could you make a space on your bookshelves for your cat just by putting a nice little cozy bed in there? Sometimes cats like little spaces under furniture as well. Also, if you have a dining table and you just pull your chairs out a little bit from the dining table, that often makes a nice little space on top of the dining chair, but still under the table for the cat. And if you've got a tablecloth, then it makes it even more of a hiding space. And that's another easy, cheap way to provide an extra hiding space for a cat. So we know that this is important, and it's one of the things that will help cats to feel less stressed in their home environment. Another thing that's really important is to provide multiple and separated key environmental resources. And this is another one of the 5 pillars of a healthy feline environment. By your cat's resources, we mean the things that matter to your cat. So their food bowl, their water bowl, their bed, their litter box, and so on, their scratching post. All of these things should be separate from each other so that the cat can access it without it being close to other things. Obviously, they're not going to want food and water close to their litter box because cats are very, very clean. Also, they want these things to be in quiet spaces where they can easily get access and they're not going to be disturbed by other members of the household, whether that's people or other pets in the household. And if you have more than one cat in your house, which is very, very common, each cat should have their own of these things. And it's very common for people to have multiple litter boxes because they know that's needed if you have multiple cats, but then to put all of them in the same room, which from the cat's perspective basically means it's just the one. They need to be in different places. So it's a general rule of thumb that you have multiple litter trays, so one per cat plus one spare. So if you just have the one cat, that would be two litter boxes in different spaces, so not all in the same room. And the reason for that is, for example, suppose you put one in the bathroom. That's a very common location for people to put the litter box. But if someone is using the bathroom or they're taking a shower, then the cat may not want to go in there and use the litter box at that time. It may actually make them feel quite uncomfortable, especially because most cats don't like water. So that's why you should have one in another room so that they can easily go and use the litter box if they want to. As for water, most cats do actually prefer water to be separate from their food. There's a lack of research on how most cats prefer their water to be delivered. It does seem that some cats prefer running water, and that's why some people like to leave a tap dripping for their cat, but you also can buy special water fountains for your pet that recycle the water, and that's a bit more water friendly, a bit greener to conserve the water in that way, and it still gives your cat that running water. So think about what all these resources are and where you should put them in your home, and just make sure that they are spread out and separate from each other. And that makes it much easier for your cat to be able to access their resources. So you have to think of your home. It's not just your home, it's their home too. So you're thinking, what can you do to make your home be nicer for your cat? Another thing that's really important is to think about your cat's sense of smell. And this again is part of setting your house up right for your cat. And this is in two ways. It's in terms of thinking about how your cat would like to use their sense of smell. And it's also thinking about not having really strong smells that your cat may not like. So if we're talking about litter boxes, many people like to use a scented litter. But unfortunately, many cats do not like strong artificial scents, and so they do not like the scent in the litter. So your cat would prefer you to have a litter that is not scented. Similarly, when you're cleaning, people tend to use quite strongly scented cleaners in the house. But again, especially in places where the cat tends to spend a lot of time, and that would include their litter box that's important to them, it's best not to use strongly scented cleaners, because that's something that the cat may not like and may find quite offensive. So the thing about a cat's nose, cats have an amazing nose, and we think all the time of dogs as having amazing noses, and we don't tend to think about cats as having amazing noses, but they do. Honestly, cats could be sniffer cats and detection cats as well. Their noses are that good. It's just that cats typically aren't used to going out and about into spaces in the same way that dogs are. And as well as their nose, they have something called a vomeronasal organ, or we could call it the VNO for short. And that is basically, it's kind of above the hard palate at the back of the mouth, and it's what they use to detect pheromones. And pheromones are chemical signals with meaning. So I have to say that we don't fully understand how cats use pheromones, but we do have an idea of how important they are to cats. So for example, I'm sure you're used to seeing your cat rubbing their head on bits of furniture. And I'm sure you're used to your cat coming up to you and rubbing their head on you. And so we think that when cats are doing that, they're depositing pheromones. They have a lot of different glands, and many of them are around the face. And so when they rub their head on you or on a piece of furniture, we believe that they're depositing pheromones. And those pheromones on the furniture or on the wall in your house or on the door or something like that are believed to help your cat to feel safe. So if you go around cleaning those up all the time, that's not helping your cat deposit pheromones to help them feel safe. So one thing that we can do to help a cat feel more comfortable is simply just to leave those things there for as long as we can. If there's a specific spot in your house where your cat rubs their head very often, sorry, I've got the sun shining in on me right now. If there's a specific spot where your cat rubs their head very often, you may even end up noticing a bit of a browny yellowy mark on the wall, for example, and that's from the pheromones that they've deposited. your cat would prefer you not to clean that up or paint over it immediately. They would prefer you to leave it. Obviously, at some point, you're going to want to clean it up and tidy it up. But from your cat's perspective, they would rather you left it as long as you could. And similarly, on their bedding smells of them, and that will help them to feel safe. So if your cat has multiple beds, it's best not to wash all of them at once. Always have one that still has their scent on it so that they feel comfortable there, and don't wash all of them all at once. So wash them on rotation and spot clean them when you can instead. And this is something that shelters quite often do now as well. They will spot clean instead of taking everything out and cleaning it every day. When it's possible, they'll spot clean because it helps the cat to have their own scent there. A scent is also important for social reasons. As far as we know, scent is also used between, like for tomcats when mating, for example. So there are lots of different ways in which pheromones are used. We don't fully understand them, but we do have some pheromone products on the market now, which can be quite helpful. Some of the research on the classic pheromone, Feliway Classic, is a bit mixed. Some shows that it helps, some is not so clear, but we do have randomized control trials for Feliway Friends Feliway Multicat, which is designed for multicat homes. And that one study showed that in conjunction with help from and advice from a vet behaviorist, actually it did seem to help quite a bit. So it seems that they can be quite helpful. Another way to use scent is as enrichment. And I think everybody's heard of catnip and knows that many cats enjoy catnip. And we know they're enjoying it because they will be rubbing their head on it, trying to eat it, rolling around on top of it. And it's in a lot of cat toys to encourage cats to interact with the toys. Not all cats respond to catnip. And that's actually something that's genetic. So if your cat doesn't respond to catnip, there's nothing you can do about it. Another thing is that young kittens don't respond to catnip. It's something that develops over those first few early weeks of a kitten's life. So young kitten isn't going to respond anyway. It's only once they're a little bit grown up. But there are some other substances that you can use as well, which cats also like, and they include valerian, tartarian, honeysuckle, and silvervine. So in this picture, the block of wood on the bottom, that's a block of honeysuckle wood, and some cats really like that and will roll around on top of it in the same way as they will with catnip. The chewed up stick is a silvervine stick, and then the packet with the Japanese writing on is silvervine powder, which is powder from the fruit gall from silvervine. And that used to be more easily available from Japan, and you used to have to get it from Japan, in fact. But now it's much more easily available here. All of these things are becoming more easily available. So you can get these even from many local pet stores and also from sellers on Etsy, for example, if you want to get toys with these things in. And so research that looked at 100 cats to see how they responded to these found that almost every cat responded to at least one of these substances. And actually, I think silvervine was the one that most cats responded to. So if your cat does not respond to catnip, it does not mean that they're not going to respond to these. And it seems to be a very individual response. So you can try these, and it's just a fun thing to do, to try with your cat and see if they like it. Another thing that you can do, this is my cat, Melina, here in this picture. And most people don't realize how good cats' noses are, but they are really good. And at the moment, scent work for dogs is becoming increasingly popular, but you also can do nose work with your cat. And this is just an easy way to provide a bit of extra enrichment for your cat and to give them a fun thing to do. So all you need is a few cardboard boxes and treats. And in this case for Melina, I had hidden, including in some quite small boxes that she had to put her paw in to get the treat out. But you can do this just with normal big cardboard boxes, and that's an easy thing to do. So you put your cat in another room, you spread your cardboard boxes around the room, you put a treat in each box, you let your cat in the room, and you don't tell them where the treats are, you let them explore the boxes and find the treats. And then you can repeat it a couple of times. And this is exactly what people would also do with a dog, but cats can do it as well. And it's fun for cats. And also the very first time you try it, your cat is probably going to be a bit confused, but they like cardboard boxes. So they're probably going to explore them anyway. And if they don't, you can just encourage them to explore the boxes, but they will get the hang of it very quickly. And there will come a point when they know they've been shut in the room and they come out and they see the cardboard boxes, they will be like, whoosh, let me at those treats. So it's a really fun activity to do with your cat. And it's a nice, easy way to provide a bit of extra enrichment for your cat. And you can also make it harder by spreading out several boxes, but only putting a treat in one of the box. And then when they find that treat, you add extra treats. And that's making it a bit harder. So to begin with, you want to make it super easy. Anytime you try a new enrichment activity with your cat, you want to make it super easy and put a treat in every box and wait until you're really sure that they've got the hang of it before you start to make it more difficult. So that's just a fun activity to do with your cat if you feel like it. Another thing that you can do is you can use food to train your cat. And I'm going to suggest that this is actually a really good idea because training your cat with positive reinforcement, it works and it's fun. And you can do it to train tricks like this cat here. And I've taught my cat to sit pretty as well. So I have a couple of training plans at the back of my book, Purr, and one of them is to teach your cat to sit pretty, and the other is to train your cat to go in their cat carrier. And the thing is, it's actually very easy to use positive reinforcement to train a cat. And a lot of people think, oh, you can't train cats, but that's not true at all. Of course you can train cats. And if you think about it, most people have actually already trained their cat to come when the treat packet is rattled. So you get the treat packet out and they hear the noise of the treat packet and your cat comes running because they know they're about to get a treat. So you know that positive reinforcement works with your cat because that works. So you can train your cat to do tricks and that's just a fun activity, or you can concentrate on training your cat to do the things that they have to do in everyday life. And there's a really lovely book called The Trainable Cat by John Bradshaw and Sarah Ellis. And it's all about how to train your cat and why to train your cat. And that's a really nice book to look at as well. And I think one of the things to bear in mind is that treats for cats, if you're using food treats to train them, they have to be tiny. If someone's used to training dogs, they tend to give their cat really quite big treats, but your cat is only small, so the treats have to be very small. And the other thing is that your cat is probably not used to being trained very much, so you're going to have to make it fun for them and it probably only work in short sessions. And if your cat's enjoying themselves, you're probably also going to have to take little short breaks while your cat walks around you and rubs their head or their body against you, because you know this is a nice bonding activity for them. But it's a really fun thing to do. And you can use little food treats. Most treats like a Temptation or something, you would want to break it into pieces because, again, so that it's small enough, because you want to give your cat the opportunity to earn quite a few of them. You can also get liquid treats that come in tubes and your cat can lick from the top of there. And that's quite good because many cats aren't used to taking food from our hands. So they can be a bit bitey when they're trying to take the food. And also they may also reach out with their paws when they're trying to take the food, and you don't want to get bitten or scratched. And so you could also use like a little wooden spatula, lollipop stick, or a spoon to deliver food to them. Or you could put a little bit of wet food in a bowl. But that's a really fun thing to do. And one of the most important things you can probably do for your cat is actually to train them to like going in their cat carrier, because so many people struggle to take their cat to the vet. And it really makes a big, big difference when you train your cat to go in the carrier. And we know this from research in Switzerland, in which they actually use cats that lived in the laboratory and they trained them, or they divided them into two groups. And one of the groups was trained to use their cat carrier over a period of weeks, and the other group wasn't trained. And then they put them all in the carrier and they took them and they gave them a mock vet exam. So the scientists were vets. So one of them acted as if the owner and put them in a carrier and drove them to a place they'd set up to use as a vet, and then they had an actual vet exam. And what they found was that the cats who had been trained to use their carriers, they were less stressed in the car on the way to the vet, they were less stressed at the vet, and the vet was much more likely to be able to actually complete the exam, and it all happened much more quickly. Whereas the cats who hadn't been trained, you can probably guess some bits of the exam the vet couldn't even do because the cats were too stressed, they had to give up. And this is a very, very common experience, I think, for many of us. So it's really a good idea to do it. The way to do it is very gradually. So ideally, you're going to have a cat carrier that you can take the lid off. One of the ways that helps so much is that actually at the vet, you can take the top off and the cat can remain in the base of the carrier while they get examined by the vet. And if the vet has to take them out back for blood tests, for example, they can take them in the base of their carrier still. So that's the kind of carrier to go for. And you need to do it very, very gradually, because in some cases you might be starting with a cat who won't even go in the room where the cat carrier is. And in those cases, of course, your cat already has built up a fear of the carrier. It's going to take quite a long time. It's potentially going to take months. Whereas if you're starting with a kitten, you could probably do this very, very quickly and it would be nice and easy. So it's much easier when you start with a kitten, but it's still really important to do for an adult cat. And it really makes a big, big difference. Another important thing is not to use punishment. And the reason for that is that punishment may stress out your cat, and it can also damage the relationship between you and your cat, especially because it's quite possible that they will associate the punishment with you rather than with the thing that they were doing. So, for example, common times when people might use punishment would be if their cat goes on the kitchen counter and they don't want it. Sometimes people unfortunately use squirts from the spray bottle, for example, but the risk is that your cat is going to associate that with you and it's going to damage your relationship with your cat. It's much better to think about things from your cat's perspective and think about, am I providing the right environment for them? What can I provide them that would be better? So if you don't want your cat on your kitchen counter, one of the things is they might be there because they're expecting to find food. So obviously don't have food there for them to find. Another thing is that cats like to be high up. So maybe there could be some other high up space where you could have. Some people even like to put a cat tree right next to the kitchen counter so the cat can be on the cat tree while you're doing things in the kitchen, and that can work quite well, for example. Another thing is with, for example, scratching furniture. There is no point in trying to punish a cat for scratching, because scratching is a natural behavior for cats. They have to have something to scratch in order to keep their nails in tip-top condition, and also they're depositing pheromones from their paws when they scratch. So you have to provide appropriate scratching posts for the cat. And unfortunately, we know that many people provide scratching posts that, from the cat's perspective, are too short, not sturdy enough, too flimsy. So it is best for a scratching post, if it's a standalone post, to be really tall so that the cat can really stretch out and get a full body stretch when they're scratching. And also if it's like a cat condo, if it has multiple levels. And also some cats like to be able to have a horizontal surface to scratch on. So you can buy nice cardboard cat scratchers that are horizontal. And also you can buy nice mats that are designed for cats to scratch. They basically look like a doormat, but it's for your cat. So you can give that to your cat if your cat is the kind of cat that prefers a horizontal surface. Most cats like a scratching post to be made of sisal rope. But every cat is an individual and every cat has their own preference. And especially as they get older, they might actually end up preferring some kind of carpet on the rope. So it's up to you to find out what your cat likes and really avoid using punishment. And then another time when sadly people are likely to punish their cat is if the cat has a house soiling accident. And in those cases, it's actually really important that you go to your vet, because if your cat is already house trained, but they start toileting somewhere else, very often there's a medical issue. And it's very important to rule that out, because if there's something medically wrong with your cat, no amount of punishment or training or changing the environment is going to fix that. You need to fix the medical issue. And it can also turn out that sometimes stress is part of that, and punishment would only be adding to the stress. So don't punish your cat. And the reason it matters about their relationship with you is that, contrary to the stereotypes, actually cats do care about their guardians. So we have these stereotypes of cats as being aloof and not caring about people. But if a cat has been well socialized as a kitten, then they do care about people and they do like to have interactions with people. And we know this from several different types of research, including some that's looked at traditional measures of attachment, like that between a parent and their child, or caregiver and their child. And when people do that with cats, they do find that for some cats, not all cats, but for some cats, they have what's known as a secure attachment, in which the presence of the cat's guardian helps them to feel more safe and secure, and helps them to feel more able to go out and explore, for example. But another thing is simply that cats choose to spend time with their people. And I don't know what your cats are like, but maybe your cat will often choose to follow you around the house. They probably have a routine in which they spend certain parts of the day just napping or sitting by the window or something. But very often your cat will choose to come and spend time in the same room as you. And every cat is different in that some are real lap cats and they like to be sat on your lap all the time, but other cats are not lap cats at all, but nonetheless they like to be in the room, maybe next to you on the sofa or somewhere close by. And we say of cats with other cats that if they're spending time within a meter of each other quite often, then we say that they're kind of bonded to each other. And so you could say the same for your own relationship with the cat as well. Another thing we know about cats is that those meows and chirrups and lovely noises that they make are not noises that adult cats make to each other. Those are noises that your cat is making to you. And a cat's meows are actually very individual. And research shows that people are much better at understanding what their own cat's meows mean than other people's cats. So when scientists tested people, they had recordings of cats in different situations and said, you know, is this cat wanting food? Is this cat wanting to get to the person, but they're blocked by a barrier or different circumstances? If it's your own cat, then the chances are you're going to be quite good at recognizing what those meows mean. If it's someone else's cat, you're not very good at it at all. So this meow is a very individual communication between the cat and you. And I think that's really lovely and really sweet as well. So I talked a little bit earlier about cats coming and rubbing their head on you. That's showing that you're part of their social group because they're depositing pheromones on you. Another thing that you probably see your cat do quite often is roll over and show their tummy, like the cat in this picture here. And that's called a social roll. And that is also, this one is something that cats do to each other as well. And a big mistake that many people make is to reach out and pet the cat on the tummy. And every time I talk about this, I have to say there are exceptions, because there are some cats who do not mind being petted on the tummy, but most cats do not want to be petted on the tummy, especially by someone they don't know very well. So really, cats prefer to be petted around the head. So when your cat does this, then they're not saying, come and pet me on the tummy. They're saying, I feel safe enough to show you my tummy. And I know that it's as if they're saying they know that you won't, they trust you. And it's a nice social signal between the cat and you. So when we're talking about interactions with our cats, another one of the 5 pillars is to make sure that interactions are positive and predictable. And most people like to pet their cat for quite a long time, and then they think, okay, that's it, they're done for the day. Your cat, however, will prefer really short interactions, but much more frequently. So always give the cat a choice of whether or not to come and be interacted with. So if you give your cat a big hug, your cat doesn't have much choice in that. They can't move out of the way. So give them a choice, see if they will come up to you. And we know that interactions work best and they last longer when the cat is the one who initiates them. And scientists have tested this by having people sit and they've given them instructions on how to interact with the cat. And there's been quite a few studies like that. And really, they all show that it works much better when the cat has the choice of whether or not to come up to you and you don't go towards the cat. So maybe if you want to call the cat to you, or put your hand down and see if they come over, or just put a finger out and see if they come up to you. And then cats prefer to be petted around the head and face, which is where most of those scent glands are. And scientists studied this by going into people's homes and petting the cat in different places and seeing what happened. And actually, it was a nice study because they had to give all of the cats a choice. There were very few cats that got to the end of the experiment and had been petted in all the different places. Most cats walked off at some point, of course, because they prefer their interactions to be short. But this study showed that cats really do prefer to be petted around the head and face. Most cats do not like to be petted around the tail, which for some reason is a place where people do tend to go to pet them. And most cats don't like to be petted on the tummy either. Another thing that's really important is to provide opportunities for play with your cat. And that means not just individual toys for them, but actually the chance to play with you, for example, with a one toy. And the reason for that is that cats are a predatory species, and play allows cats to practice that predatory behavior. So they're searching for prey and so on. And a cat that had to find their own food maybe would catch around 10 to 12 mice a day. Of course, they're not going to catch every single mouse that they see. So that would be a lot of time that the cat would normally be spending catching mice, looking for mice, hunting mice, failing to catch the mouse, having to go look for another one. So when we think about it like that, we can see that indoors only cat who doesn't have any mice, hopefully, to go and look for, doesn't actually have very much to do. And there is research that shows that when people take time to play with their cat every day, their cat is less likely to have behavior issues. It's better for the cat if it's a longer play session. And there's also some more recent research on cats with outdoors access as well that shows that taking the time to play with the cat means that the cat is less likely to catch and bring home prey. So that's really interesting. And that suggests that cats really do have this drive for predatory behavior, and we can fulfill it by using toys. And it's as if the toys are like the actual prey item. So playtime is really important. As far as toys go, cats prefer things that are new, but that doesn't mean that you have to keep buying new toys. You can just rotate them. This one applies to dogs as well. They prefer new toys. So you can put some of the away in the cupboard. If they're washable, you can wash them, and that can make them seem like they're new again as well. And it's a good idea to have a range of different types of toys to represent different types of prey. So the toy mouse is fairly ubiquitous. Something with feathers on would be equivalent to a bird, but also you can get toy snakes, toy fish. Something big, kind of like a rabbit that they can kick at with the back legs, is good for them as well. So it's good for them to have variety. And what we know about cats catching actual prey is that some cats will specialize, like they might specialize in mice or some other type of prey, whereas other cats will catch a whole range of different types. So you don't really know what your cat prefers. So it's important to provide this range of different toys so that they can use their own individuality in finding the toys to play with that they prefer. Another thing to bear in mind when moving the one toy, people are expecting their cat to be leaping in the air after it all the time. And it's really fun when your cat is doing that. But especially as your cat gets older, they might be a bit less athletic. But also just watching it is part of that predatory sequence as well, because part of searching for prey is looking for it and watching it and getting ready to pounce. So even if your cat is spending a lot of time watching the one toy before they build up to running after it, that shouldn't discourage you from playing with them. That is still an important part of the play sequence. So I mentioned scratching posts already. Cat trees with one or more levels, a post that is more 3 foot or higher, really helps to make sure that the cat is going to use that scratching post. And another thing that we know that is associated with cats scratching in places where the human would like them to is using positive reinforcement. So if your cat uses their scratching post, you can just give them a little treat afterwards, immediately afterwards, and that is associated with them using the scratching post more often. So again, this is an example of how we can use positive reinforcement to train our cats. There are also several things that we can do to give our cats choices, because I think cats, especially as a species, really like to be in control of things and to have choices. And so obviously the choice of whether or not to be petted, the choice of whether or not to go to a safe space. So we know that safe spaces are really important for them, and a choice of whether or not to be trained. So whenever we can give our cats a choice, it's best to do so. It's much better for them to let them be in control of things. It makes life much less stressful for them. So it's an important thing to keep their stress levels low. For example, a lot of people, if their cat goes to hide when they have visitors over, they want to go and get the cat out and because they want the visitors to see the cat and interact with the cat. But it's really much better for the cat if you let the cat hide, and probably they will come out in their own time anyway, and that's much better for the cat because they'll be much less stressed. It's much better for their confidence. And if they always have a choice, then in future they're more likely to come out and see your visitors early on as well. Of course, every cat is an individual. So if you happen to have a particularly fearful cat who doesn't want to come out and see visitors at all, it's best to respect that. And if the cat is fearful to the point that it's a problem, then discuss it with your vet or consider getting some vet behavior advice. But really give them a choice whenever you can. And I love this picture of this young cat looking out, all curious, a lovely curious face. And you can see the cat's ears forward and the way the whiskers are. This is a really nice, curious kitten. And it's nice that they should have the choice to come out instead of being forced to come and interact. And similarly with training, I mentioned that you're probably going to have to train in short sessions, and it's going to be up to you to motivate your cat. And you're going to probably find that your cat can only train for short times to begin with, and you have to give them a choice. And if they decide they're bored and they walk off, then you just have to say, okay, never mind, I'll try again another day, and just be patient with it like that. It really helps to be patient. Another thing that's becoming increasingly common is using food puzzle toys. And this, again, is a way of encouraging your cat to use part of their predatory sequence. And the nice thing about food puzzle toys is that there are tons of really good ones on the market, and also it's super easy to make some yourself and to make homemade toys. So you can simply take a plastic bottle, cut a few holes in the side, put some treats in, and your cat has to roll it around to make the treats fall out. That's one very easy way to do it. There are also some really easy toys that you can make just with cardboard tubes, for example, cutting holes in, sealing the ends, putting treats in to fall out, or connecting them together and putting treats in so your cat has to reach their paw in. And the interesting thing is that most species prefer to work for their food than actually to get their food for free. There's a question mark on that for cats. There is some research that suggests that actually cats prefer their food for free. However, it's something that we need more research on. We do know that when you're introducing food puzzle toys to cats, it's really important to make it easy for them. So fill the toys to the brim so that they're gonna, the food is just gonna fall out really easily. And use treats in there to get them really interested in it. And you may have to demonstrate the food puzzle toy to them. And also, different cats have different preferences. So some cats will like to use their paw to get things out. So if you happen to already know that you see your cat using their paw to get things, that might be the kind of food puzzle toy to try first. And other cats can't really be bothered with that, and they would rather be rolling a ball around or something like that. So I have one of my food puzzle toys that I use for my cats is I forget the name of it, but it has like 3 test tubes, and that you fill with food, and there's a hole at the top of the test tube and the cat can bash it and it flips around and food falls out, and it goes into a base, and the base is similar to in this picture where you can see the white bits sticking up and the bits of kibble in between the bits. So if it goes into the base, then the cat has to use their paws to get it out. One of my cats loves to use her paws. She will sit there, she will spend actually quite a long time working to get the food out with her paws. My other cat will not. He does not like that. And he actually just knocks the whole toy over. And I used to think he was doing this because he was frustrated and it was taking him too long to get the treats. What I actually realized is that he does it. He waits until there's a lot of bits of kibble at the bottom, at the base in between those bits, and he doesn't want to use his paws to get it out. But if he just goes whack and knocks the whole thing over, all those bits fall out onto the floor and he can get all of them at once. So every cat is an individual and they will find their own ways to interact with these things, but it's a very nice way to feed your cat. And another thing on the subject of feeding cats is that these days it's recommended to try and feed your cat multiple small meals a day. And again, if we think of the cat as trying to catch those 10 to 12 mice a day, we can't realistically give our cat 10 to 12 meals a day. We don't have the time in the day to set our alarm and do that all the time. But one thing that's recommended is that maybe you could try for 5 times a day. Certainly to spread the meals out throughout the day and include one of those meals just before bed, because that will help to decrease the likelihood of your cat getting hungry in the middle of the night and waking you up at 2 a.m. because they want a snack. And if you're out at work all day, you can get food toys for cats that are on a timer. or dishes that have a timer and open. So you can also use those to feed your cat as well, and that can help you to spread the meals out throughout the day. So these things that I've been talking about are all different ways of thinking about what your cat needs and what will make them happier. And I think we get cats because we love cats. We want them as companions. We don't tend to get cats because we need them as mouses these days. So it's really important to think about what we can do to give our cat things to do. And when we understand what they need and we provide those things that they need, then we can make them happier, and they're much less likely to have behavior issues, and they're more likely to have a better relationship with us. And so I've been through a set of tips today. This is just a reminder of the tips that I've talked about. So set your house up right for your cat, including with those safe spaces. Use food to train your cat. Don't use punishment. Train your cat to like their carrier, because it will really make going to the vet much easier. Make your interactions with your cat positive ones. Always give your cat choices. Use food puzzle toys, and also you can use scent enrichment as well. And you can read more about all of these in my book, Purr, The Science of Making Your Cat Happy, as well. If you want to know more about me or my books, you can go to my blog. And I also have a lot of free articles that you can read on my blog, all about different things to do with cats and with dogs, and you can sign up for my free newsletter there as well. So you can find a ton of information for free too. So thank you very much for coming and listening, and I'm available for questions if you have any.
Right. Hello. Let's see if I can reclaim this. This is Elizabeth, one of your hosts. So can you see me on screen? No, it's just Zazie.
Let me stop sharing. There you go.
There we are. So here we go. We've got the book, Purr, The Science of Making Your Cat Happy. Really informative, and wow, what a presentation. Thank you. I had no idea that cats needed to eat 10 to 12 mice per day. And I'm looking forward to experimenting with some of these different scents to see what's the best and what's so interesting about those. I wanted to know several things actually. One of the things you mentioned was never to have scents in a cleaner. And all I could think about is all the cleaners, and they all seem to have scents. So is that something that, and I'll go through the chat as well in just a minute to pull out each of these questions that people may have asked. But in terms of the cleaners, what types of cleaners do you recommend then?
Yeah, so I mean, you can buy unscented cleaners, and I think that's probably what your cat would prefer. Especially some of the greener, more environmentally friendly cleaners aim to be unscented. So those would be the ones that your cat would prefer. Honestly, I think most of us do use scented cleaners anyway, and it's probably best just to try to get one with a scent that is not as strong. So I mean, just for yourself, you can tell if the scent is not as strong as you know, with some as with others, and that would be the better thing to do. And especially pay attention to the scent when you're cleaning around spaces that the cat uses a lot. And I think it's those bathroom cleaners that tend to be especially strongly scented, and those, that would be especially the case to look for one. But if that's where your cat's litter box is, you don't want to be cleaning around that with a strong scent if you can avoid it at all.
And that's, I really wanted to ask also about, you mentioned about hiding places for cats, high up and warm. So I can imagine putting various boxes and different bookshelves, but then I think to myself, well, maybe we need to move them around, take them away, because after a while, because they may get a little, need to be, and then you might have to take one away, but don't take all of them away at the same time to replace them with new boxes.
Yeah, and so actually there's kind of a general rule about providing enrichment for your cat or any kind of pet, which is that if you provide something and it turns out that they love it, you don't really want to take it away if you don't have to. But obviously with a cardboard box, there may come a point where they've ripped it to shreds or it's a bit stinky now or whatever, and you would have to replace it with another one. So like you say, just don't replace all of them all at once, just do one at a time. And then at least there will still be other places in the home that still smell like the cat and that the cat can still use in a similar kind of way.
Excellent. Let me go to this chat window here. This one, you mentioned the importance of cats being able to scratch. I know that many owners choose to get their cats declawed. What is your thoughts on this practice?
Well, where I live, actually, it is not legal to get cats declawed. And where I grew up in the UK, it's not legal to get cats declawed. And I think increasingly there are places where it is being banned. And I think that's a good idea because unfortunately, scratching is just something that cats have to do. It is a natural behavior and it's up to us to find ways to make the cat, you know, have appropriate places where they can actually scratch. And the thing about declawing is that although it's called declawing, it really is amputating the knuckles of the cat. It is a painful procedure. Research shows that once cats have been declawed, they do seem to have a lot of pain in their claws, but also because it makes them walk differently, pain in their backs as well. And that can be associated with cats being less likely to use the litter tray or needing to have a much softer litter in the tray. Otherwise, they might have toileting accidents in the house, which nobody wants that. And then the other thing is that one of the arguments that people used to make for declawing cats was that they claimed, and it turns out this isn't true, but they used to claim that it would help to keep cats in the home because they wouldn't be scratching in the wrong place. But the BCSPCA actually did some research on what happened here in BC before and after declawing cats became banned to see if more cats were needing to be rehomed after the ban, and they were not. Actually, fewer cats were needing to be rehomed after the ban on declawing. So it seems that banning declawing is actually good for cats because it doesn't lead to more cats being surrendered to shelters at all. So I think it's not a good idea, and I think it's important for people to understand what kind of scratching post they should provide for their cat. And there is still more research being done on that, but there is also a lot that people can do to make sure that their cat has something that's sturdy, that does give them a chance to stretch, that maybe gives them a horizontal surface as well, or instead of a vertical surface, and takes account of cats' individual preferences as well. And then also you can strategically position them. Like if you have a sofa that you really don't want the cat to scratch, you can put the scratching post right next to the sofa, the arm of the sofa. And then if your cat gets there and they're thinking, oh, where shall I scratch? They've got a better alternative right there. That's going to distract them from the sofa as well. So there is a lot that people can do to make sure that their furniture isn't getting completely wrecked. And unfortunately, declawing is painful and it's bad for cats. That's a great question. It's an important topic. Thank you, Samantha.
Then the next question, do you have suggestions for a cat that is very strongly not food motivated for training? We have one that seems to only like eating my cacti, but turns his nose at every cat treat we have tried. And I really don't want to train him with cacti.
No, I have not heard of anyone training their cat with a cactus. So I assume that this cactus is safe for the cat to eat. But I would say one thing is to ask whether this cat does have access to some grass to chew on in the house, because cats do like to have grass. Unfortunately, some cats, even if they have grass, they will go and chew on everything else. But most cats, they will have some kind of food that they will work for, like little pieces of tuna or little pieces of chicken or something like that, or little bits of prawn even. That would be something to try as well. So there's a range of different things to try. Some cats really like to be brushed, and so some cats will actually work to be brushed, and that really depends on the cat because some cats hate to be brushed. But one of my cats loves to be brushed, and he'll come running if I shout that I've got the brush out. So that's his recall cue, just to show him the brush or say the word brush. He's learned that means he's going to get brushed, and he loves it. So that's something else that you can try as well. And the other thing is just to expect to work in really short sessions. if your cat will only work for 2 or 3 treats at once, maybe that's what you've got to start with, and then only very gradually build up, because it's not like dogs who get used to being trained from day one. You get them, you're training your dog with food, and so they're used to it, and they're used to having to use their brain to work out how to get the food. Cats aren't like that, so we're starting from the very beginning with them, and so it's something they have to like learn how to be trained as well. So even if you're only getting a few goes, I would say that's still really great. That's fantastic. And you should say, well done. You know, he's working for these 2 treats. And then over a bit of time, probably he will start to work for 3 treats or 4 treats or something instead. But he has to learn to have the concentration to be able to do that as well. So yeah, I don't think I would recommend cacti as a training reward. But it does show that every cat is an individual, and it's important to figure out what works for that particular individual cat. So hopefully you can find something else, whatever it is, like prawn or liver treat or whatever, that he would actually work for. But I think sometimes you do have to go through quite a wide range of treats. And if you're used to training dogs, then you know that most dogs will easily work for most things, but there are certain dogs that are really hard to motivate. And like a Siberian Husky would be a classic example of the type of dog that would be harder to motivate, and where you can't just use your regular training treats. They're only going to work if you have like Parmesan cheese or something like that. And so it can be the same with cats as well. Like some cats just need a bit more motivation than other cats. And so you just have to work a bit harder to find that. And I'll be interested to know what you find that does work. So let me know in future. Thank you.
Is fantastic. Guys, we are coming up on time. So we're going to say thank you so much for Zazie for sharing her time with us and information from her book, Her, The Science of Making Your Cat Happy. And we just had an amazing time today, and go check out that book for additional information and background on that science. Zazie, thank you so much for joining us here at WAG Workshops.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for all the good work that you do. And it's been really fun to come and chat with you. Thank you. Bye.